Hello and welcome back to the channel. Following our tour through the historic villages of Portugal, we first visit the walled village of Sortelha, which still preserves its medieval spirit. Then head to Castelo Novo, located in a natural amphitheater of the Garduna Sierra. And if you like our video, do not forget to like it, subscribe and activate notifications so that you know when we upload a new video. Sortelha is in the list of the historic villages of Portugal, and among them is considered one of the most beautiful. As for parking, you have a small free parking at the entrance of the citadel, and if you go in a caravan, you can park in a picnic area a little further away, which in a pleasant walk takes you to the historic village. We parked by caravan in this picnic area, and started a pleasant walk along the road entrance to Sortelha. Before reaching the historic village, the road takes us to the present Sortelha, located in the municipality of Sabugal, and which currently has about 450 inhabitants. We cross the newest part of Sortelha, and gradually we are approaching the historic village, in which stands the tower of tribute to the castle, which was built in the 13th century by King Sancho II, and which witnessed for centuries of the battles between Castilians and Portuguese. We cross the imposing wall that surrounds Sortelha by the so-called Porta de Vila, that still preserves the marks of the stonemasons who sculpted it carved into the stone. Through this gate we enter the Middle Ages, as José Saramago wrote, and we arrive at the Largo do Coro, where some of the most important houses of Sortelha are located, such as the House No. 1, the oldest in the village, the House of the Falcons, the House of the Wind That Sounds, or the House the Town Council Writer. We continue our ascending tour through paved streets, which blend houses of medieval style with more modern houses in Manueline style, with details that invite to stop at every corner. So we arrive at a small square, located in front of the castle, presided over by a beautiful 16th century Pelourinho, and where the town hall is located, which also performed functions of prison, as witnessed by the barrettes on the windows of the lower floor. At the foot of the castle we find the Gate of Betrayal, which served both to escape in case of attack, and for the entry of reinforcements without having to pass through the main door. After climbing a few stairs, we pass through the gate that gives access to the castle, on which there is a beautiful balcony, called the Veranda de Pilates, and which is actually a defensive matacan. We access the interior of the castle built in Romanesque Gothic style, with some punctual details from the Manueline era. The citadel located at the southern end of the castle's walled enclosure, houses in the center of it the Tower of the Tribute. The walls can be traveled without problems, although as always, taking care not to fall, and from it we can divide a landscape of olive trees, oaks, pines and chestnuts that seems endless, as well as a beautiful panorama of the medieval villa. We left the castle, and we continued walking through the medieval streets. Next to the wall of the church, we find a grave excavated in the rock, and next to which we find one of the steps of the Via Crucis, built in 1742, and of which there are distributed a total of 5 throughout the village. On our journey, at the height of the church we decided to deviate to the right, and we continued to ascend towards the walls. Upon reaching the walls we go to the left, passing by the so-called Arab house, built in the 15th or 16th century, and which is currently used for rural tourism. Ascending we reach the so-called false door, another of the entrance gates of the village, next to which we found the Tower du Faccio or Tower of the Torch, which by means of fire at night and smoke during the day, allowed communication with the nearby fortifications. Following our journey through the walls, we arrive at Porta Nova, located on the opposite side of the Porta di Villa, and in which we observe a section of 300 meters long and 5 meters wide of an ancient medieval road. Next to the road we find the ruins of the Church of Mercy, built in the 14th century, and where we find a necropolis with more than 130 graves excavated in the rock. We return again to the interior of the villa, and we stop at the Church of Our Lady of the Snow, the parish church of Sortelha, and that was originally a Romanesque church, probably founded in the 13th century, being remodeled in 1573, date that is carved in the entrance door. The bell tower or Torre Sinaira is isolated and located on a higher rock, and from here we see a beautiful panoramic view that says goodbye to this beautiful medieval village. To the south of Sortelha we find Castelo Novo, another of the historic villages of Portugal, and considered as one of the 32 best villages for tourism in the world. As for parking you will have no problem, as it has a large free parking, next to a water bottling plant located very close to the historic center. We parked the caravan next to the restaurant O Lagarto, located at the entrance of Castelo Novo, and from there we started the visit, finding ourselves the so-called King's Fountain, built in the 14th century during the reign of Don Dionisio as testifies his shield. And following the Rua de Bica we reach the Largo de Bica, where there is the Fountain de Bica, a beautiful Baroque fountain built in 18th centuries, with the shield of Don Juan V, and crowned by a beached Latin cross. Never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby I have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, we continue to climb up the Street of Mercy, next to which we find the Church of Mercy, built in the second half of the 17th century, in honor of the Lord of Misericordia, with the collected by donations and the sale of medicinal herbs. Through narrow alleys, we reach the Castelo Novo Square, where we find the old town hall, built in Romanesque style in 1290 by order of King Don Dinis, and of which on the ground floor was situated the prison, and on the upper floor the town hall. Here we also find a 16th century Manueline Pelourinho and the beautiful fountain of Don Juan V. Behind the old town hall we find the castle, equipped with a number of gateways that make the visit more accessible. This castle was built in the 12th century, and 2 gates have been discovered in its wall, some primitive towers and part of its palace. In the enclosure only 2 towers remain, the Tower of Homage, which is practically destroyed, being visible its primitive height by the existence of gargoyles on the east side, and the bell tower or clock tower much better preserved. We leave the castle, and we get lost by the medieval route of Castelo Novo, formed by paved narrow and sinuous streets, which serpent along the hill where the villa is located. We would have liked to have extended the visit longer, but it was at night, and we still had a few miles to Monsanto, the visit of the next day. We started the descent by going through places such as the Chapel of San Antonio, a small chapel from the 16th century, or the old Hotel of the Waters of Alardo, built in 1921, in order to accommodate all visitors who sought the water of Alardo for therapeutic purposes to mitigate kidney problems, diabetes, and liver problems. We conclude this quick visit to Castelo Novo, next to the cross where two dates are recorded, the Restoration and the National Independence. Nearby we find the so-called Cerro de la Horca, a curious rock formation made up of two large stones, where you can see the holes where the structures of the fork were settled, where criminals were punished for their crimes, and next to which we end our visit to Castelo Novo before going to Monsanto, one of the most emblematic historical villages in Portugal.